Good morning, people. How is everyone doing? Awesome. Sounds just wonderful. Excuse me, just dandy. It's going to be a good day. I have a feeling it's going to be a great day. I have a feeling. So today, Thursday, it's February 19th. Initial jobless claims, U.S. trade deficit came out, manufacturing, advanced U.S. trade balance in goods, advanced retail, inventories, etc., etc. The Fed minutes things was yesterday, which I didn't even really read. Doesn't really bother much. I'll get to that later. So I just clicked on this thing from MarketWatch. It says, Fed minutes reveal discussion of possible rate hike if inflation doesn't cool. Shocker. It's almost like we all could kind of expect that. I know a lot of people have been talking about rate cuts, but again, the Fed's not going to keep cutting rates if inflation doesn't get under control, which it's not really under control anyways. I don't really think it's been under control since... Well, I guess you could say, it's slowed. But I mean, right, COVID inflated everything and cost of living went up, and now cost of living is not going back down to where it was. It's just going to stay here and then keep inching higher no matter what, until the world ends probably. So anyways, that's that. So yeah, maybe the Feds raise rates. The initial jobless claim stuff I haven't really looked at, but one thing I do know is unemployment and all that's getting worse. With AI replacing jobs, that's a big thing. So, I can't say I feel the most comfortable about the future for the moment as it relates to AI and the displacement of the workforce due to that. So, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe cutting grass and, trimming trees was always the way to go. But anyway, so yeah, what we're going to see is pretty much what I expect is going to happen too with the workforce is everything we saw happen with the push for college degrees is now going to happen in, in a lot of trades jobs and manual labor jobs. Obviously, if the AI workforce displacement really intensifies, because that's just it's pretty obvious. It's human psychology, right? The same reasons everyone said you should go to college are now going to be the same exact reasons everyone tells you to trade school, right? So if you've been in trades, good for you. If you've already started going into a trade, good for you. You're not late, and you can probably still go into that. But I would imagine we're going to see at least somewhat of a similar change as it relates to that. Again, same thing. Go get a college degree. You need a degree to be successful. Well, no. If college degrees aren't doing it for you, then what are they going to say? Well, shit, instead of going to school for 4 years and paying a bunch of money, might as well go get a trade. So you're going to start seeing at least a balance there, more so than we've seen in the past. So, I wonder if all the people that are making great money in trades now, their pay is actually going to go down or won't grow as fast in the future because now there's going to be a greater supply of those people willing to do those jobs. That's another interesting one. But anyways, so that's all pretty much to be expected for the future, obviously, if all this intensifies and what happens. Anywho, all right, so for the one beautiful soul, thanks for tuning in. Anyways, so yeah, the market right now has already hit support the stock market, United States stock market, S&P 500 has already come down into support this morning. So right here, that was support. Now, this is not just this here blue line isn't just a random blue line on a chart. Well, it is, but that again is, as we normally say, that's the 50 SMA. So it's a little off, sorry, right about there. So it's a little, I think I moved it off on accident. So if you look, SPY, right, yesterday on stream, what did we do? Yesterday, if if you're watching the stream, we were bearish in the pre-market, and then going into the open, we said pretty much long to the SMA calculation. Once we got over, we continued long up. By the end of the day, we ended up falling back to the SMA and holding a bounce. This morning, pre-market, we've traded back down to the SMA calculation, and we're still just pretty much holding, right? So essentially, unless the market truly gets acceptance below pretty much where that blue line's at, the market won't have its, we're not going to go into a breakdown yet. So, for those of you that were also on the stream yesterday, you remember we talked about the market and how it goes through a couple different phases. Yesterday I said 4 phases, now I think I like 5 phases, and then they repeat, right? So it would be breakdown, right? Then it would be oversold bounce or reversal long, back to trend or back to the SMA. Once you're at the SMA, the market will then have to decide if it wants to flip the trend back to positive or keep the trend negative. If it does in fact flip the trend back to positive, then you would be going through the next phase, phase 4 here, which is a breakout long. And then you would have phase 5 in this case, which would be a pullback back to trend, and then essentially all the phases, and it just kind of repeats, right? And then you would be back at the deciding game, right? So it's either bounce, whatnot, or decide if it wants to break down. So yesterday, we saw a couple things, right? So let's just kind of go through the phases again. So we were in breakdown phase, all right? Then past day or two and through yesterday was the oversold bounce back to trend phase. Yesterday, the market decided it wanted to break above the SMA, so we went back long as it relates to transitioning the SMA. So there would be breakout long that only lasted for a very short period of time before getting its pullback to SMA. And now we are at the deciding game of, do we hold support or do we break it down? All right, so we're not in the breakout phase, we're not in the breakdown phase, and we're not in the pullback phase, and we're not in the short-term first tag long phase. That would be like micro scalping. We are currently in the sort of decision game, which is, do we want to remain in this? And when I say do we want to remain positive, I say that when markets are above, plus sign, that's positive. When markets below, negative, minus, right? So the decision right now is, does the market, do we as investors, do we as traders, or do we as a market as a whole feel that it's necessary to, let me flip this back to pre-market, to keep the market positive? So I bought the dip here this morning a little bit on UPRO. So I've been long UPRO from yesterday through the entire pullback, and I bought a little more here there pre-market, averaged down my position a little bit. And the reason why is because we haven't broken down yet. The market is still positive. Now, regardless of what I think a pattern looks like or how I think the market looks when I'm looking at the patterning, I've been proven wrong many times where I look at something and go, that looks terrible, and then I close it, and then it still ends up working, right? There's also been times where I'm like, that looks terrible, and then I take something off, and it ends up, I'm being right, it ends up pulling apart, right? But that's where you start to kind of manipulate, strategy, if you will, because, if the market can always do whatever it wants in that regard. But at the end of the day, right, market essentially broke out yesterday, and this is a pullback to support still. It doesn't look good, and many people are like, oh, look at this head and shoulders, right? There is a head and shoulders there. That head and shoulders pattern that you might be seeing, kind of like I just drew, it's only going to work if the algorithms want it to. Which is, if the algorithms and the market and collectively the system wants to break down the SMA here. If it breaks down the SMA and we flip market structure, then we turn into more of a neutral to bearish environment. And as a result, what are you going to see form on the pattern or form on the chart. You would see a breakdown and it would look like a head and shoulders. So, people that look at patterns, right, like this sort of head and shoulders rolling, it's only going to, it looks good. Like, don't get me wrong, the pattern actually looks great. But it only gets triggered if the algorithmic break of this neckline support happens. Now, if you're not following the SMA calculation, you might just think that these are like the market's just picking support here and like that's why it's bouncing there. Like, it's true, but the reality is right there where the arrow's pointing, that's the SMA calculation. And for me, that's why we are bouncing it. That's why I added a little on that dip here this morning and re-averaged down, is because that's still support until it's not. Now, obviously, if for whatever reason markets end up coming down and breaking this down today, and then maybe at that point we would see something like this or, So bottom line, as we always say, the simplest thing we can do is add text like this. Something like this, bearish below. And that's as it relates to trend, right? There's all sorts of different pullbacks and stuff you can look for and do. What am I doing? Oh, it's right there. Bearish below and bullish above. I'm not going to write it on the screen. I don't need to do all that, but you get the point. Good morning. Don't know who you are, but I love you. Good morning. God bless you. God bless your soul. Hopefully you have a good day. Yep. So, Bitcoin pretty much just chilling, doing what it does best, not doing anything right now. Remember, we're not expecting anything great to happen for Bitcoin till 2027, 2028. Price targets right now for Bitcoin are 110,000 to 100,000. That's going to get lower, and those price targets we really don't expect to hit maybe until 2027. So it's like a 100K price target into 2027, probably, but it's going to be less than that. Yeah. Let's take a look at silver. Silver, a little bit of a bounce here. Looks like it's over its pre-market 30. I wonder if it's retraced the reg. So let's see. Silver is now back over 30-minute. Silver is one. See, now here's one thing I will mention. This strategy does not work great on the silver market, in precious metals. It works, but it's just not as clean. And it just the way silver trades is it's so gappy. It just does. It works, right? You can see it still has the same meaning. It's just not as clean. So I will mention that while I was there. Same thing with gold. But anyways, let's check on the yields. 10-year yield, 4 point. What's this looking like? Pretty much doing what you'd kind of expect and not going down yet. Yeah, I think things are going to get pretty, I don't know, I don't think things are going to be all great and rosy for the next 5 years or so. We'll see. Hope things do well. Alrighty, so yeah, that's that. I searched through some penny stock stuff here this morning. Didn't really, as it typically goes, couldn't really find anything. Hasn't really, I would say for this winter, now there's always something moving, but I gotta say for this winter, it feels like the penny stock market was pretty slow. I would call it more of a slower year in this winter for the penny stock markets. Let's see what this is, TRNR. Yeah, that's late. So, yeah, I gotta change up some of these charts over here, get them more organized. So yeah, right now we're just gonna be sticking on the long side of kind of the swing market. And we can use the swing levels for day trade entries and day trade targets. But we're not in a swing bearish, environment for the exact moment, right? And everyone looks at things different. Obviously, if someone looked at this market, they might say that it's in they might still think it's bearish, you know, and the market can definitely go down and so on and so forth. But yeah, I really got to make like a little pamphlet guide and just put it in it. I'm gonna work on that pretty soon. That way I can just say, go here, read this guide, and it will be how we kind of follow the markets, because everyone looks at them differently. And you know, just because I say it's bullish, you know, 5 seconds ago doesn't mean it's going to be bullish, you know, at 2 p.m. today. And someone's like, you said it was bullish in the morning. It's like, I know, but you have to learn the system the way, you know, and then we can all be in line together. All right, well, I'm just going to shut up, and I'm just going to start scanning through stocks and actually do my job, and if something looks good, then yeah, maybe I'll mention it. Oh, yeah, but damn it. Well, anyways, I do have to keep talking. Netflix, all that. I still have Netflix. I took off Apple yesterday. What do I have left? Hold on. I wanted to look at some stuff, but what account am I in? Is this the right one? No, it's not. Go. I am still holding INBS. I still have Microsoft, Netflix. I ended up adding a little Nvidia. Still have ROLR and still have UPRO, etc. So shaved a few things from yesterday, but yeah. So like Netflix, Microsoft, Nvidia, like all of those are still being held just because the market is still positive. So there's that slight opportunity that they could work out with the hopefulness the market doesn't break down. But if we end up getting some sort of breakdown or whatever day, we're not going to be holding those, because then we're just going to be shifting to a bearish market, right, in the short term. And since we know that, we know there wouldn't be value of necessarily holding it in that moment, right? So that's kind of some things that we're watching right now. I'll bring up Netflix and them real quick. Let's see. So yeah, like in right here, I mean, you can see Netflix, right? We were getting bullish Netflix yesterday because we could see it was breaking the SMA. So there's more of a likely chance that if it wants to start an uptrend, it can. So we moved up a little bit. We pulled back a little bit, right? You can see the SMA calculation is down at the price of $76.83. If we kind of move, wait, why is it weird? Hold on. So you can see right now with Netflix, it's still positive, right? So yesterday it turned a trend positive around like $77.20. And throughout the day, you can see the SMA calculation moved lower because obviously Netflix has been downtrending, so SMA calculation is going down. But so anyways, the support over under for Netflix is still at about $76, right? So trend is still okay with Netflix as it relates to price and SMA calculation. So just still have position on that. And then what was the other one? Microsoft, again, it performed exactly like I kind of expected it would, where, you know, pushed up, pulled back, whatever. It's trading right at the algo level. I already have a position on this one. It's red, but I'm just like, what's the point of taking it off for the moment? It's sitting right at the algorithm level. The market hasn't truly broken down yet, so there's still a chance, you know, because the market's not truly bearish yet. We're sitting right at the algorithm level, so it could break down or it could still break out, kind of just sitting, doing nothing for the moment, letting the markets speak more. Nvidia is still positive, doesn't look great, like same with Microsoft, right? And we're in a challenging market, and we know this, right? And you guys know that I've already mentioned that I expected 2026 we're going to have a correction, or we're going to see some bearish trading. So far for 2026, the market hasn't done anything good. It's just traded flat and sideways, really. So far, thesis is somewhat correct, right? We haven't had a correction, hasn't been a bear market. Well, I mean, we did say we'd see lower performance in 2026. So far, that's true. But it could also be proven wrong in like 3 weeks from now. So we don't want to toot our horn too much. But since that's happening, we have been seeing some harder trading, especially in the tech side of things. A lot of consumer staples are working well. But anyways, that being said, with NVIDIA, so if we look at the screen here on the left, right, you can see NVIDIA has its SMA calculation right at the price of 186.15. So yesterday we broke over. We were talking about watching a little bit long, whatever. All right, and I decided to take on some a little bit later. But what's ended up happening, right? We have this, and actually, so what ends up happening, right, is moves up and then leg down, consolidation, lower high roll down. Where is the SMA calculation and trend algorithm basically target and mean reversion level? 186.25. So there's a high chance, or there's a good chance, that NVIDIA is targeting down to $186, right? And so you can kind of see this has like a little bit of a head and shoulders formation, right? Well, that neckline is not the SMA calculation. So if you take out that neckline, it's going to be targeting down to that SMA calculation. Regardless, it just means that the patterning doesn't look great on NVIDIA. There's still room for NVIDIA to go down if it wants to at least back test trend support there. So the only benefit that NVIDIA has that the market hasn't quite broken down yet. So it's kind of one of those situations where all of the trades that we kind of entered yesterday and were messing around with worked well for day trades as we transitioned the SMA calculations. But the market strength overall isn't strong enough to kind of keep them running into more of like 2-day, 3-day swing longs that are working easy. So we essentially just don't currently and haven't had enough market strength as a whole, at least in the stocks we've picked or the sector that we're in and some of these plays that we kind of entered in yesterday, to drive them continuously higher throughout the day, throughout after hours. And a lot of that is built off the back that the market itself is just not that strong. And that's okay. It just is what it is, right? And as a result, you can see, what did we do overnight? We bounced up, or yesterday, and sold back to the SMA calculation, right? If you look at the plays that were involved, they all are trading very similar in that sense, right? NVIDIA broke up, faded back to SMA. The market's really just one big organism, and the sooner you kind of realize that, you can kind of see how it all is pretty much just the same game, right? To a degree, slight nuances, right? So NVIDIA, pop up, pull back to SMA trend, same as whatever I was just saying, same as the market. Netflix, for the moment looks like it has a little strength, but that could all be proven wrong very easily too. So basically, we just got to give the market a little bit of time. And just see if it holds support. If it doesn't and it breaks down, then what we're going to see is we're going to see equities kind of have a bad day, most likely, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I hope that all makes sense. So pretty much if the market breaks down below 684.33, then we could very well be triggering kind of a sell-off today. And, just with the way the market looks, I wouldn't say it's going to sell off, but we'll see. So, yeah, below SMA calculation right there, 684.37, which also makes 684.37 the current short-term scalp down target, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to add some stuff here like that. We're going to add like that. So this is arguably going to be another target too. So that's kind of the short-term pullback targets to the downside, right? So there's I can say a lot and I can talk a lot, right? But this is not particularly just an easy market setup today. There's kind of a couple different variables. It's not like we're just breaking out and going. It's not like it's just a back test. We've already done a back test. So we've already kind of done the back test bounce trades. We've already done the pullback down to back test short trades. Again, it's a decision day. And decision days can get a little bit more complex or tricky just because there's more variables, right? When you're deciding if you're going to hold support or break support down, you're playing kind of a two-sided game, right? When you've broken out and you're pulling back down to support, that's what you're doing, right? So you have the bounce support trade, right? Or the pullback down to support trade. Well, once you've done those two things and you're just kind of hovering, right? Then it's like, well, are we gonna take it out, or are we gonna hold it for the moment? So you kind of get into sort of the ping pong analysis, if you will. So I see the market a couple different ways right now. I can see downside short targets to that green box, to that blue line, and then bounce trades off of those. It's a couple different ways the market could kind of move today, but for the moment, I would like literally in the moment. Right now, I would be leaning bearish down to 684.13 and as far as that green box, arguably. So this is kind of how I would see this, right? Like those would be like downside short-term destinations for the moment. Obviously, if the bounce doesn't continue, which sounds silly when you say it like that, but yeah. Now, I haven't had the time to, I haven't really had the time to look at the volatility index this morning, but we probably should do that, eh? Okay, so now we got to get through the volatility index. I'm going to delete all these because these are for yesterday or past couple days. All right. So volatility. Is volatility being expressed in the market or no? Right now, volatility is not being expressed in the market. So remember just like 3 seconds ago how I said I think we can pull the market down into this level? I still think that's possible. But, regardless. So I would be leaning a little bit more bearish into this market today for the moment and into the open. Well, it's only 8:01, so we're not even close to the open. But I would be leaning more downside here. And in general, today, remember how we were saying we're kind of in a decision day where are we going to take out support? Are we going to hold support? We also, with the volatility index, are right at the algorithm level. So the price of $20.29 on the volatility index is where we are either expressing fear into the market or removing fear out of the market. So again, you can kind of see how I was just mentioning it's kind of a decision day, right? So not only is the stock market at its algorithm level, the volatility index is. And a lot of times that will be the case, right? It's when they're not moving in lockstep that things are a little weird. So when they're moving in lockstep, that's what you want to see. And even when they're not, it can be beneficial too. It's just it becomes more of a head scratcher because generally, like in the market, things tend to make some degree of sense in the market. It's when they're not making sense that you're like, okay, what's going on here? That's when someone's offsides in the market. Right now, the markets, I would say, are performing in lockstep together when we look at volatility and we look at the market because the VIX is at its breakout level and the market is at its breakdown level, you see? So if we're going to break the markets down today, we will see the expression of fear come in on the VIX, and that's going to start taking place over $20.29. You could also flip-flop it, and you could say, if the VIX breaks out 2029, fear is coming into the market. And as a result, it expresses in the price action going down on the S&P 500. All right? So another way of describing a breakdown is if we are able to express enough fear into the volatility markets today, which can trigger over 2029, then we would be more likely to see negative action or selling pressure on the S&P 500 day, right? So right now we're pretty much going to be taking the market down to that green box most likely, and then if into whether it be pre-market into the open, we break out the volatility markets, then that's where we would maybe start leaning a little more downside, right? So like right now we're not looking for markets to go any further than that, right? If we get down to here and then the VIX is breaking out like we said and it's truly expressing fear, that can be that secondary catalyst to then take us further, right? So like right now we're really just projecting markets down to the green box because of kind of price action stuff and like volume weighted average price and SMA back testing, right? But if we're really going to break the market down, we need true fear, right? And that fear can only be expressed if the VIX reclaims that 2029 price, right? So that's pretty much, you know, it's funny because they go, that's pretty much how it's set up, but that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. You're not supposed to know half of those things when you first start trading or looking at markets, right? And then to conceptualize them all in real time, it's very challenging. But then again, you know, I do this every single day. So if I speak a little quick, I'm sorry. It's very challenging for me to go back in time to when I was a beginner. And so it's hard for me to speak totally slow, I guess, you know. But anyways, that's something we could be seeing here, right? So if we do express fear into the market, then, you know, equities probably aren't going to be performing that great, right? So I'm going to go get a refill on this coffee because I'm speaking way too fast and I should probably slow it down, eh? So I will be right back. Okay. Yeah. All right, that's enough teaching for the day, I guess. You guys got the gist. I'm just gonna wait. Is that audio back on? It is. I'm just gonna do a quick flip through some things. So there is the back test of our SMA calculation, if you will. All right. Actually, gotta move this target up a little bit. It's about right there. Like that. All right. I am not talking because I'm looking for stocks, which with the way the market's moving right now is probably not going to be the easiest. Generally, if the market's going down, it's harder to find momentum upsies, but obviously it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. And the Russell 2000 reverted back to SMA yesterday, so obviously if that's not trading good, then penny stocks are not going to be good. So we're right now, yeah, I mean, you guys know we already mentioned we're lead slightly bearish forecast right now because that's just what the market is telling me. Not a whole lot to buy right now as far as, penny stocks go. So I'm just going to sit back for the moment. And yeah, what else do we have here, brother? Nothing. So we just gonna be hanging out for the moment. What is the deal here? Right on, brothers. Right on, brothers. Let's see. I have the Rocket League song stuck in my head. Oh yeah, by the way, Bitcoin, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some of you may have watched my YouTube short video I made yesterday, maybe not, but essentially the downside destination for Bitcoin in the short term, if you will, is right here, right? And it's just, again, it's one of those things. It's just volume weighted average price. It's just if we can break the previous kind of low structure or this VWAP, and it as soon as the market just kind of gives way on this little whatever it's trying to hold, then it's just most likely going to sell straight down to 65,397. you only see these lows, right? You would only see these low areas get tested if you were to take out 65,439. And when I say if, it's more or less just you won't see the market speed up towards, right, that low point unless you take out obviously previous low here, which is very much just this volume weighted average price of 65,439, right? Now you could simply just say, well, unless the market goes below that low, it can't go down here. That's kind of true. But if I had to like pick a truly specific exact price, it would be about 65,439 or so. So that's kind of how I'm watching the market right now on Bitcoin. And then also, if you want, you can start anchoring volume weighted average prices to the top of this move, and that's arguably going to be our next back test target, and then lower high rolling level. I'm actually going to add 3 here because just the way those candles formed. So like right now, that's our counter long target when the market's ready, right? So when the market bottoms and kind of starts to retrace, those are going to be a target. They're going to get hit sometime in the future, just like you saw here, right? When you saw the market bounce and then it goes up and you take a VWAP and anchor to the low, we know at some point, however the market wants to, whether it goes up for a day and trades sideways and then falls off, it's going to come back and back test. And there's very likely going to be an attempt or a trade around that area. So we just already know one day Bitcoin will come back to that level, whether it's all the way down here or whether it's all the way down there, etc. And then there's going to be a trade in that area. All right, so it's just a matter of just sitting back, waiting, and then just seeing it happen, I guess. Yep. Now, the volatility index still right about that $20.30, 2029, hasn't broken out yet. But as we said, today's a decision game, right? So you can see I have this drawn on the screen as a kind of a bearish breakdown day. I have no clue if that's really going to happen. It could very well happen, and it's at the level that can make it happen, but does it is the question. And so if, like we've said many times this morning, the volatility index breaks out, we will probably see a bearish breakdown today. And so if we do end up seeing that, what's going to happen is, and you can kind of see, whether you look at it like this, right, and then like it down, right, if you want to draw head and shoulders like that, that's fine. All right, if you want to draw one that's like this, that's fine. But that's only going to play out, if A, we get the breakdown, and then B, volatility breaks out. And so the market is at the levels to do so. So that's another thing too. The market, you will see things like this quite often. You will see kind of pattern formation around SMA calculation, right? It's pretty common. So we are about to complete our pre-market pullback targets or what have you. As you can see, we've obviously hit the high side, or if you will, T1 of this box. We are now coming into the volume weighted average prices of the pre-market low, which would be our final destination as it relates to this strategy, which is a pullback into volume weighted average prices of the pre-market low. That's a strategy. That is something we do, very common on a day-to-day basis. I haven't seen it stop. It works many times, and then there's other times where it doesn't, but nonetheless, that is pretty much done. We might get a little lower here, right? Give or take, but that's pretty much it. That strategy, that play, that trade, done. Could the market go lower? Sure. But that has nothing to do with the strategy we're just looking at, right? I mean, well, I guess it kind of does, but again, that would be, there's multiple strategies here, right? The breakdown that we're talking about, it doesn't really have to do with these VWAPs. I mean, yes and no, right? This becomes an over-under, right? For the market to kind of break down, we want to see this zone break down next. But the ultimate breakdown really would be built off the back of the market getting acceptance below the 50 SMA, volatility expressing in the market and breaking out, right? What we just did here was simply pull the market back to volume weighted average prices. So the way I view this trade that we just did down to here and that move is anyone that bought the dip here today, they've pretty much all been stopped out, right? You know, because a lot of people don't hold for stops below. I mean, some may, but in terms of psychology and how people a lot of times scalp and a lot of times trade, you know, if they started buying this low or buying here, somewhere in here, the likelihood that they're holding all the way through this red is probably not likely. They probably got taken out already. So when you think about the market in terms of trying to screw over your opponent or your trader or, you know, the previous market participants, that's effectively one of the things that the market likes to do, and that's how it does it in many cases, right? Just like we talked about with Bitcoin, right? You know, if we go look at Bitcoin on the daily chart here, right? Like, how do you piss off everyone that, you know, bought into this low? Well, obviously you take the market down, right? So, you know, this is one way I see it. You know, most people did not buy Bitcoin at the absolute low here. Most people probably didn't get it here. They probably saw it go up and started maybe getting in the middle of this candle, somewhere on the high of this candle, so whatever, right? If you're buying that. So by pulling it back down here to a volume weighted average price of the low of that bounce, you're most likely going to take out everybody that, like 80% of the participation of that candle, right? If you track the volume weighted average price from the lowest point of the bounce, right? As the market pulls back down to that volume weighted average price, you've effectively taken out like 80% of the volume that's been on that candle. When I say take it out, it's not that someone literally stopped out. You have no clue who's doing exactly what, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of figure out what's going on there, right? So when we do those sorts of moves, we know we're really playing with the emotions of a lot of previous market participants that didn't buy the absolute low, right? Anyone that bought the top, they're red. Bought the middle, they're red. Bought close to the bottom, they're either red or about to be red. If you bought the absolute low, you're the only one that's left green. And that's a very, very small few, right? So when we go back and we look at the S&P 500 this morning, and I talk about taking the market down to where we just went down to, it's because, well, I've seen it one too many times, but also the thought process there as well, right? Anybody who bought this previous bounce, if we take it to here, we've pretty much screwed them all over. They're all pretty much cooked, right? So we just know that anyone who bought that bounce, we've effectively stopped them all out, at least 80% of them, to a degree, right? Not truly, but you know. And now, if we start taking this out and going lower, then obviously everyone from that low has been taken out, obviously, right? But either way, so cheers. Job well done, right? Welcome back to the stream. I think that's another, so that would be one for one on market forecast this morning. So congratulations to all 7 of you guys on accurately forecasting the largest globally traded market in the world. Or well, ETF in the world. Job well done. I'm glad I tuned into your guys' stream this morning. You've been really helping me out lately, so thank you. I appreciate that. Part of me feels like this is going to be a day of not doing a whole lot of long bias trading for equities. So yesterday we were pretty active. Looking around, right? But today, it's probably not going to be that day. Today's probably going to be like maybe if it looks, and when I say if it looks good for a short, right? Again, the market's already bearish. Like we already have that play. Like that's done. Now what I'm debating is if I should be adding a bigger, like when I say bigger short, it's just should I be looking for a bigger play here today? And so I'm debating on maybe some, you know, inverse ETS short right now, SQQ, inverse ETS, whether you can be short MES, ES, right? So the ideas here are either if we get the breakdown, right, the VIX breaks out, we stay below the 50 SMA, and it actually has like a good down day, what's going to win is you're either going to win selling calls. Selling calls, it's either going to be bearish MES. And again, all these things can change pretty quick, but like I said, today's the decision day. Decision days can either be annoying and kind of slow and grindy, or you just get the breakdown and go. So I'm hoping today we just get a breakdown and go. That would create the most fun trading environment for us today. So the hope is we get a fun trading environment, which would be a breakdown day. That's the hope, right? We always want a fun trading day. So that's what I'm hoping for, right? At this point, I'm hoping we get a breakdown, right? I don't care about the market staying long bias anymore. But I wanted it to, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. So now we want to see a breakdown. So, Netflix, all those other little long plays, I'm going to be taking those off here in a second. But everything else, we want to see, I just kind of want to see breakdown. I mean, I don't know. I might not have to take off Netflix yet. It's still positive, so it's not like it's even bearish. So I might keep Netflix. I don't know. Still like kind of undecided on that one. Nvidia sold. Wait, did it sell down to target? No, not quite, but I think it's going to. Yeah, so like I don't need to hold on to Nvidia anymore. That one's pointless for the moment. And it's going to continue lower. So like that one, I'm going to cut. Microsoft probably isn't needed. Microsoft's below trend, so I can cut that, and if it goes back into a buy, then I'll take that. So there's no point of holding that one. Netflix is the only thing that's still kind of relatively positive, so like I guess I can just kind of keep screwing around with that. And then all the other little ones I got going on are fine. So yeah, we're pretty much just reducing exposure on the long side today because the potential for a breakdown, the VIX to break out, and market to potentially change structure in the short term, momentum's not favoring those longs anymore, and we might need to transition bearish. Today could literally be a bearish transition point, so we're not going to hold through a breakdown and get smoked. That would be stupid. So now we're kind of flipping and hoping we go into a short now. And now we're going to maybe look to position on short side of things, whether it be MES, ES, selling calls, riding puts, whatever strategies you like. That's kind of how markets are maybe forming. That being said, it's like I said, it's a decision day. Right? The market has to do pretty much as it's drawn here on the screen for the breakdown day, which is to stay below that blue line. Let me double check that price because sometimes TradingView prices are a little out of whack with SMA calculation. So I got to double check. So right now the VIX is now positive pre-market. Oh, that's another thing too is you can't fall in love too much with analysis in the pre-market. Okay. I do have to put down, no problem, Steve. I do have to make, I promise I will make a little rule book and like a little pamphlet PowerPoint guide or something that pretty much has like all the rules and kind of the nuances of what we do here on stream, so that way you can have basically a rule book to follow with the stream, right? Because like I was saying, like you can't fall in love too much with stuff pre-market. A lot of times, the market likes to confirm in the live hours, right? So like I keep saying, the market, if we're going to get the breakdown, it's got to stay below and blah, blah, blah. So the market could still bounce at the open to back test in live hours, right? See, right now, you can see the price of the market is below 684.34. Which is the SMA that we're talking about. But this is in the pre-market session. This isn't live hours. Many times, live hours still wants to confirm. And the algorithms that perform, and just in general, let's just call it algorithms. The algorithms many times don't necessarily care what happens in pre-market. And then when the live trading hour starts and all the volume actually hits the market, we'll then back test SMAs and then we'll break down. So basically, what we have here, the scenario is either the market is just going to break down, right, with no back test, or the market is going to back test and it's going to back test to basically that blue line. That's 8 times out of 10 how the market is going to trade for the moment, right? So let me just double check my my calculations, my calculations here, and make sure I'm right with the pricing. That is. But I also made that SMA calculation huge now, so it's debatable. SPY 683.99. Hold up, something is off here. Oh, see, that's why. See, this is the thing. I double checked. Am I? Wait. Am I stupid? I might be stupid. Okay, I'm just stupid. That's okay. 684. Okay, hold on. So this is what I was saying. We have to double check TradingView or Thinkorswim. TradingView simple moving average calculations can be wrong at times. See, on TradingView, the 50 SMA is Snikes. Sorry, damn it. What am I doing? The 50 SMA on TradingView is at 684.33. On Thinkorswim, it's at 684. So we still actually haven't really even taken out the SMA calculations fully. So another way to think about it is like you have a big portion of the population watching this one, and then you have another portion of the population watching this one. And so I watch both, right? So in reality, if I were to think about that SMA calculation as populations watching 2 different platforms, this would be the 50 SMA breakdown zone, not necessarily specifically one price point. So just in general now, it would just be either the market has to maintain below that SMA calculation to that SMA calculation, which is just maintaining below that zone for a breakdown today. I know that's a lot of detail, again, but unfortunately, this is just how the market is. So, yeah, I'm not really expecting. Wait, what time is it? 8. Wait, it is 8:30. Hold on, everybody. Everyone, just chill out real quick. I gotta do something. Am I? Oh, gotcha. That makes a lot more sense. For some reason, I thought initial jobless claims already came out today, but I was clearly looking at the wrong day, and I was like, that makes no sense. Because then I looked at the time, I'm like, it's 8:30. I'm like, how in the hell was it? Of course the day didn't come out. It's silly. But yeah, so that was probably just data or something. Yeah. So VIX is still positive. Let's see, that's the 1 minute, right? Data. Yeah, data extension targets are 684.44 and 682.61. So arguably, if we go for a bigger back test this morning, we could arguably see markets as high as that right there, which would just fall in line with our back test out of the open kind of thoughts anyways, but you get the point. I'm not going to do too much fib stuff. I don't want to confuse people too much there. Don't want to mix too many strategies and get everyone all jazzed up, so we're just going to keep it simple for the moment, which is literally just some moving average stuff and yada yada yada. The chat is absolutely bumping today. I mean, I know you guys are just so crazy with the chats today. Man, can hardly keep up with the demand here. You know, when I was in school, when I was in elementary school, I always knew, like, without a doubt, I always knew that I would grow up to sit in an office alone all day speaking on a computer. I knew it. When they said, what do you want to grow up to be? I said, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be on YouTube looking at stock charts. I just knew it. You know, sometimes when coffee is just better than other days, this is one of those days. This is a good cup of coffee, and I'm grateful for that, because some days it just doesn't hit well, and this one, it's doing good. It's doing its job. So just to make sure we're all clear, right, on the same page, remember that the market hasn't necessarily broken down. Remember, this is all pre-market. So the best way to think about pre-market is, what's that saying? That things are like up for debate, or things are not set in stone. That's maybe a good one. Anything that happens pre-market, pre-market is like, pre-market, again, nothing that happens in the pre-market session is sets the market in stone for the day. All right. A lot of that has to do with live trading hours. The best way to think of it is that, a lot of times pre-market sessions here in the United States, and I know people look at Asia session and London session, and that's really just all it is. It's just a different market trading. But the way I see it is all of those markets, they don't necessarily fully determine what's going to happen in our market. Some may see that differently than I do, and I can't really say that my way of thinking is entirely correct, but I like it. But yeah, I would pretty much say anything that happens pre-market is up for debate, because I think that the live trading hours here in the United States trumps everything. So, like I said, just because the price of the market is below those 50 SMAs doesn't mean we've broken down. This is just pre-market trading. There's a great chance that into the open, into the morning, we still need to back test those to even confirm if the market wanted to break down, right? See, like I said, this is what looks like a cool head and shoulders pattern, but unless the market collectively, the algorithms and the systems really want the market to break down these SMAs, you're not going to get a breakdown. So right now we're doing the back test, right? And this could literally turn back into a long here, right? I don't even know. That's what I was saying, is we kind of got to get into the live trading hours. We're in the decision day, right? The decision days are always going to be a little bit more tricky, right? Just like that. Look at market right back. Again, we're in the decision, the algorithms, right? By the way, we just went up and hit the algorithm 161 of data. So remember we said if you basically just take the data, throw a fib on it like that, the 161 target upside destination right there. So that would be jobless claims data 161 extension target completing there. Also the back test of TradingView and TOS 50 SMA, etc. All right, so now in the pre-market, the market would no longer, as it relates to SMA calculation, be on the sell side. All right, so now here are your options. Either market continues going long or the pullback destination will be back to here. I know, that's probably annoying. Like I said, we're in a decision day. This is not meant to be like an easy moment for the market when it comes to picking bigger trend direction change, right? So like I said, one day I'll write all this up in a guide and kind of like a little book, or like a PDF or something like that, so you guys can get a better grasp of this stuff. So yeah, we're gonna have to get into the live trading hours and just let this market digest a little bit, and that's pretty much that. So I'm gonna take that off. I don't really want that up. Good morning, Colo. Good morning. How are you? This is going to be, I really don't know what day it's going to be. Like I said, this is a decision day. I have no clue. I really never have a clue exactly what's going to happen. I just know when something's moving away, I like what's probably going to do. You know what I mean? It's I could not wake up today and tell you if the market's going to break down for sure. I just know what levels the market can break down at and how the market typically trades and performs on a day where it could break down or you're at the decision day, right? The decision days are usually just like we're seeing. Market pulls back 2, then it kind of goes under, then it goes back and tests, etc. It's playing the decision, it's playing the game, right? It's doing the confusing shit. When I say the confusing stuff, I mean it's not giving you the easy, oh, we're just going to break down and go. Like, oh, we're just going to hit the support and just keep bouncing, right? No. All right, we're going to have to let this digest a little bit. There'll be plenty of little short-term trades that we could announce and talk about, but the bigger move for the market would be a breakdown right now, I feel like. Just depends. Also, what's the VVIX doing? I haven't even looked over the past day or two. I'm not sure if people are hedging downside risk or not. Maybe I should take a peek. And see, that's the other thing too, right? So the VIX isn't entirely positive. VVIX isn't positive. The market, like I said, it's just goofy. And when I say that, it's because no one's hedging downside risk in the market right now. So it's not like we could gain extra edge by seeing that there's hedging going on. There's no hedging going on. You just have an elevated VIX that isn't breaking out in the moment, right? So when I look at the market, I just say to myself, nothing is really at the moment for the market just to break down. And it's not really at the moment for the market just to be screaming into a long yet. I just don't see it. So I think we're just kind of in that slow chop-ish morning and digesting. And that could change. And all these things can change very quickly, by the way, too. It's not like the market just going to trade like garbage all day long. Could. Anyways, I'll stop talking. I want to just bore you guys to death. So let's see, what did the SPY do? The SPY ended up pulling back down into basically the same levels we talked about, right? Like I said, this wasn't gonna, I don't fall in love with too much for the moment, right? It's not gonna be easy. But yeah, so you guys can kind of see how, market was here, then data came out, ramped up all the way to here, and now you pull back down into this is just, again, where those SMAs are priced at. So the market's effectively doing its best job at putting the market right on the algorithm levels, and it's doing its best to just basically make everyone have to make a decision today. And this, again, the decision's like it's either hold support or not, right? And sometimes, like I said, it could chop and be annoying, but we're basically right in the algorithm's playhouse right now. And most retail traders would never have a clue this is where we're at, but we are right in the algorithm's playing zone. And it's however these algorithms and really the more sophisticated traders, I would say, sophisticated investors, programs, algorithm, whatever you want to call it, we're at the whims of them. We're always at the whims of them right now, but I don't know, maybe you call it the Viper's Den. Like that's what's going on right now. We're right in the sweet spot. And it's just a matter of the market playing nice or not. So far it's not playing nice. But But, like I said, hindsight 2020 is always very clear. So what I'm saying right now may not make the most sense, but, if the market ends up having a clean breakdown today, then the pattern you would see, hindsight 2020, be very clear. All said and done, you would see that you're right in the sweet spot. Oh, man. You guys are just absolutely going crazy in the chat, fam. You guys are going absolutely sicko mode. Oh, gosh, I'm such a loser and I love it. Again, I know I'm just drawing all these fancy random lines in the screen, but you guys know we're at the breakdown point, support, potential hold. Again, my bias for the day right now is still leaned a little more on the sell side, but we gotta kind of get into the open. I never trust like full breakdowns and breakouts in the pre-market. They can work, but again, it's just pretty much we want to see the open. We want to make sure that the market actually wants to break down. And a lot of times that would come in the fashion of, back testing some of the SMAs and seeing instant rejections and then market cascade or just big shelf dives after falling through it, kind of like we're seeing now. But I would like to get to the open and just kind of see if they're going to give us something clean, which when you say see if they're going to give us something clean, shit. You could think it looks clean and then all of a sudden it's not clean, but I'm just saying we got to get into the open real quick, which is still a long time because I started the stream way early. So yeah, we're not going to make any too big a grand assumptions just yet, I guess. In the meantime, I will keep taking a look around. Let's just do another. But that's the thing is like, in the time that I've been explaining all of this, there could have been some other stock popping up, having a great move this morning, and I would have missed it because I was just talking to you guys, right, that whole time. And since, the buy points for a lot of the things we look for only last for like seconds to minutes, right, then the likelihood I would just randomly scan something right now and find a play is very unlikely, but it does happen from time to time. That... That's sometimes the thing I love and I hate about some of my strategies. Like, the entry points are so low risk, but it's a challenge to get them because they just don't happen very quickly. Or sorry, they don't. Most of the time, the market is spent not where your buy point is, right? Like, like for example, I'm looking at BOXL here, right? And so it lasted at the buy point for 1 minute, the first breakout. Now, if I wanted to chase it, you could call it 2 minutes, right? And then on the next best trade for BOXL would have been arguably this morning when it back tested the price of $1.49, and it only lasted at the price of $1.49 for these are 5-minute candles. Actually, it stayed there for quite a bit then. Hold on. No, longer. So it initially hit there, so let's see, it's 30 minutes. So this one, it was down there at the buy point for about an hour. But that was also at like 4 in the morning. So another perfect example. It was at the good buy point when I'm sleeping. So that's another thing too, is like, I would have far more success on some of these penny stocks too if I was willing to wake up super early and start my job that early, but I'm really not. I don't really care about it that much. But maybe I should take some days and do it. But that's the thing, is some days you could wake up early and there won't be any good place. So it's like kind of one of those things, but anyways, so just the likelihood I find plays randomly as I'm scanning, it's not as often, but occasionally you will find something that's literally breaking out right when you need or back testing when you need, and it's a great play. Some of the most fun penny stocks are sometimes the ones that there's zero pre-market activity, and then they pop up on the biggest gainers, and they don't look like anything special, but you can kind of just see they have like unusual volume on them. The candles don't look great. They're breaking the SMA calculation. It has volume, right? It's like volume, but the candles don't look special. A lot of times that's like, oh snap, it's building, right? So those don't happen as often, but it's gotten to the point where if I catch it or I see it in time, I'm usually like, oh, this is a good one. But they don't, it's just not as easy to find that. Every once in a while I'll get lucky and kind of stumble on it as I'm going through my list, but that's the thing is, right, like most of these plays I'm always going to miss or what have you, because I basically try to compete exactly where algorithms compete, and it's very, very hard. I don't look for a bull flag and buy into dips of a bull flag, right? Especially when they're penny stocks. The only thing I try to do now is compete where I know algorithms compete, which obviously puts me at the odds even more against me in that regard. But when you do get one, you're in a much, much safer place, with odds in your favor to win and odds in your favor to lose less, or take less of a loss if wrong, because your area of interaction into the market is far better. Cheers. So, like I said, we're probably going to be sitting here not doing I guess I've already done a whole lot, actually. So, but like I said, we're not going to be, looking for anything too special for the moments. And actually, let's take a look at the pre-market here. So we've done that guy. And then here's another thing that I will mention, I guess, which we kind of did it already too, is if we don't get a breakdown, right? Like I said, we don't have to break down. We can hold support and rally. The market can do whatever it wants. Like I said, the days where we're in a decision, I call this a decision day. For me, this is a decision day. And those are always the trickiest. If we don't break down, market goes up, we're going to see the market go pretty much straight up to there. Like that's a pretty logical spot, right? So in terms of short-term market action and pricing, right, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if a market isn't going down and it's going up, then if you look left, then yeah, it'd probably go there, right? You know what I mean? Like, unless you think the market's only going to go up 5 cents today, right? So again, not rocket science. So if the markets ain't breaking down and the markets are going up, then yeah, we'll look at things we can target on the upside. Pretty much, boom, right there. That would be very, very attainable. More than that, maybe, sure, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to plan out, kind of how to move the market in the beginning of the day, something that's achievable. You're not looking for $2 up and $3 down, right? If the market just basically does dumb stuff and doesn't do anything cool at the open, breaking down, and it's not flying up out of the open $2.50 a share, what's something like where could it go and then still be an annoying day? Like where could it provide still a good long trade in the short term, but then still be a dumb day? Well, it could literally just go up to here, have resistance, come back down, and then still just kind of do that until maybe it breaks down later, or then maybe it breaks up later, right? So that's another way of psychologically thinking of the markets, right? The markets are always going to move on any given day to some degree, right? Some days bigger, some days smaller. And if you have an idea that maybe like today it's a decision day, which leads to sometimes dumb starts, dumb days, dumb being that it just doesn't go one direction or the other very easily, then yeah, you might have a dumb day. And if you think back to yourself, what do dumb trading days look like? They look like days where follow through isn't easy. And if follow through isn't easy, that means markets aren't going to run in one direction or the other for a long period of time for the moment. So if that's not going to happen, then you can't have price targets for the market that are really far away, because then how would they be attainable if you suspect that maybe it's going to be a dumb day? So that's where my brain's at. I am not currently looking to move the markets very far in one direction or the other, because I don't even know which way we really want to go for the moment, because we're on the decision-making level, and I am not the one that controls the market. Right? So I have to wait. I always speak in terms of there's a they, right? I have to wait until those that control the game to tell me more, I guess you could say. I have a bunch of ideas, and my ideas work out all the time, but still the main direction for me is still undecided. Even though I want to, again, I still am kind of leaned a little on the bear side just because of just how the market's been performing lately. But again, whenever I think I know something like that, like I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like biased this way. It doesn't matter, because it's always the SMA algorithm that's going to prove you wrong or right? So that's why we just say it's like, it's the system, right? You listen, you do your best to listen to the system, right? Usually my worst trades come from trying to be smarter than the system. Sometimes it works, sometimes not, but it's usually me trying to buck the system is when I'm wrong the most, right? Or have a bad trade. But if you listen to the system, you're always on the right side, because the market's never wrong as it relates to pricing, right? If you will. Wherever the market's at, it's right. Wherever the market's at, it's right. So that being said, we're gonna open up. Yeah, we're gonna open up on these estimates. This is like pain. This is not gonna be what you want. It's not entirely true. But good morning, Mike. How are you? Good morning. Also, I gotta send Walt that stuff. Hold on. I gotta go into Discord here. Walt. Let's see, stock market network, and we're gonna go to what am I doing? That might just be easier just to do it. Access. Where is it? Guess I could. Sorry, guys, I'm just sending some messages to some bipples real quick. I will be right back to talking your ear off. Don't worry, there is more of my voice to be heard. What am I doing? Sorry, sometimes I lose my train of thought when you're exerting so much brain power on the day. It's hard to keep track of what you're doing every second. Oh my gosh. Also, when you have freaking 6 computer screens and 37,000 tabs, one might get lost in the sauce from time to time. Shoot. Almost there, almost there. Almost there. 2 more messages to send. I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I think. Okay, all right, we are back in action. Oh yeah. Oh boy, I need a haircut. That's for sure. Definitely need one of those. What's going on with our friend Bitcoin? Oh no, Bitcoin. Why are you going down to $65,439 like some kid on YouTube said? Dang it! Why would you do that? Stupid Bitcoin. Gosh. I thought Bitcoin was supposed to make us all rich. Sorry guys, I know there's not, again, we're just waiting. We're pretty much waiting to get into the open at this point. I don't really see a whole lot of great moves left until maybe we get into the open. Could be wrong, but you know. Nah, lame. Market is currently priced again just below the SMA calculation for the moment. Again, not that I guess that means too much. What is this little gay? Figures. Yeah, it looks like CDIO penny stock is at least moving upwards, but again, that's the buy point was yesterday, which I feel like I don't know why I didn't see that one yesterday. I should have seen that one, but for some reason I missed it. I don't really know how. Probably because I was talking to you guys instead of focusing, but yeah. But should have definitely seen that one. Definitely should have been buying that one. That again, like CDI. Actually, I think that was CDIO. Actually, I'm gonna bring that up because that's what I was saying. Is like that's one of the ones where you could kind of get a vibe that this was gonna be at least a good move, right? So let's just bring this one up real quick. Would you frickin' work? There we go. All right, so I'm going to bring up CDIO real quick because it still appears like there's really nothing going on that's going to benefit me for the exact moment besides just maybe the S&P 500 going down. But so look at CDIO. So this was yesterday, right? CDIO, it starts the day negative, right? Below trend. But then throughout the day, into the morning, it starts to break over, right? And like back here, right, you can see on this day it starts to break over. Like that's the potential 30-minute uptrend, right? Even that move was 22%, right? This doesn't look great. Like this back here looks like nothing, but literally over the SMA, back test, false breakdown, a little choppy, but again, the market is always going to not be perfect. And then look at your up to there. That's 22% from that 30-minute uptrend start and back test and go. Yesterday, we broke over the SMA. Did you know for sure it was going to go up on the day 120%? No. It could have went up, pulled back, like you saw back here, and then gone up 22%. It could have gone up 8%, pulled back here, did nothing, dropped out the next day. You don't know exactly how uptrend is going to perform, or if the penny stock that you buy that enters an uptrend will be manipulated and they will send off a buy algorithm. Remember, this breakout and this go again, this isn't just retail randomly coming in and going, oh, this is amazing, right? No, that's what we call a buy algorithm getting sent off, right? And then that's what hits scanners, and then you start to get retail involved. So yes, there's retail trading involved in it, and yes, there's retail in this, but again, it's not retail coming in instantly buying millions of shares, right? So that's a buy program sent off on stock, whether it's news related, who knows, all that stuff, right? And then it gets you involved, right? But we, based off the system we follow, would have been able to participate before, most of the activity started, right? So this is what this stock looks like. Sorry, my computer screen's a little trying to get it all where I can. It's because of this freaking thing here. I hate that. I don't know why. I have no idea why that one sits over top the other windows, but it does. All right, so if you look at CDIO yesterday, this is one of those stocks I was talking about where I don't know why I didn't see it. I should have seen this one. I literally have no idea how I did not see this. I definitely would have bought this one. So I'm kind of mad in that regard because I looked at 1,000 stocks today, but somehow didn't see that. Don't know how. But anyways, CDIO. So this is kind of one where you can see it. It looks like absolutely nothing, right? There's no volume. There's nothing, right? It's just kind of breaking out over the SMA, right? This is one where I would just start taking a stab at it, right? Because it just has that look, right? Where it's moving, right? And then look at this. You get a volume spike here. How much volume was that? I don't even know. Let's see. It's not showing the thing like I normally have it. But anyways, you get this big volume spike just like right there, right? So you get this interesting volume spike right after a breakout. And then, even if you started buying it and then look at this, you see all this volume start coming in here. That's crazy on a random stock no one's paying attention to for the moment that just started an uptrend. Like that's a signal, right, that this is things going for a nice move. So I'm kind of annoyed we missed that one yesterday, but plenty of more to come, I'm sure. So, as we can see here, the volatility index is currently trading over the $20.30 mark. That generally means that volatility is elevated, even in the slightest. So we're not long biased, right, in that regard. So, again, we're going to stay leaned on the bear side for the day because just of how things look, Again, market can do whatever it wants. It could reclaim the SMAs and go back long, but as long as price is currently below those SMA calculations and the volatility index is above its SMA calculation, fear is elevated, and we are less long bias, right? Here's I gotta bring this up here. So look at the volatility index. I'm gonna put this into this box here on the right or the left. So the other day, right? So think about it. Remember just yesterday we were long, and now like today we're like, maybe we're bearish. Everyone's gonna be like, well, you're flip flopping. You're always flip a flopping. You're like a Gucci flip a flops, right? So it's because a lot of times we use the VIX. So if you look yesterday, the VIX was doing what? The VIX, right? So ready? So the VIX was positive. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, it pulls back to trend. So then it has to decide if it's going to hold positive or go negative. The VIX yesterday decided it wanted to break down, go negative. So we use the VIX's breakdown of trend to do what? To go long the market. There you go. All right. Now what's happening? From the beginning of yesterday to the end of yesterday, the VIX bounced back to trend, right? Remember the phases of the market. Break out into uptrend, pull back to trend. Decide, remain in the same trend or change trend. It changed trend to breakdown. So breakdown phase to bounce back to trend, right? Now decide, remain bearish or go bullish. If VIX breaks out and elevates fear, what do we do to the market? We go down. So if we perform the breakout and we trigger the SMA break on the VIX to some degree, then we are less optimistic of the market being bullish, right? Optimism, fear, greed, when to be fearful, when to be greedy, etc., right? Fear drives the market. There's specific price points that fear triggers. Just because the VIX is priced high doesn't mean fear is triggering in this moment, right? So you can have a fearful market with specific prices that trigger fear in the moment, right? So right now, the market is fearful overall, but this morning we might be triggering a new a new hit of fear, right? It's like a new instant dopamine kick, right? Volatility, new catalyst, right? So SMA calculations create catalyst moments in the market, right? Sometimes that's how you can kind of gauge continuation, right? So good example is for example, let's say the market's pulling back, but the VIX hasn't broken out, right? And that's kind of like what happened yesterday, right? So yesterday the VIX was bouncing, so we're pulling the markets down to trend. The VIX is going back to trend, right? We're on the breakdown level. Does the market break? Does fear get expressed today? We'll see, right? So you can see how we've perfectly positioned both the volatility market and the S&P 500 at the focal point on both markets. Now they have to decide. It's a decision game today. And that's why I keep emphasizing, even though, like I said, I'm leaned more on the sell side, only because in this exact moment I can see that the markets are below trend and the VIX is positive trend. That could change, but for the moment that's not the case. But either way, you guys get the point. I know I feel like I'm always repeating myself, but I guess I will continue repeating myself because it's the same system over and 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 over. And the patterns, to a degree, are pretty much the same over and over and over and over and over. And that's another thing, too, is you can actually... go back. That's fine. You can actually see how... I can already see, someone would be like, look, it's the descending triangle or whatever, right? The bouncing ball, right? The head and shoulders, right? There's multiple patterns there. It's not just one, right? Someone's seeing this as a descending triangle breakdown. Someone's seeing the inverse head and shoulders. Someone's seeing a bouncing ball rolling break, right? Sure, it might work, or the algorithm's we actually don't want to break out fear today, and then like that, right? So it's less to do with the pattern, and it's more to do with how the algorithms are pricing fear or not, right? Is the market sustaining specific price point or not? Are people hedging volatility? Right now I can't tell because I can only read that at market open, right? It's not the bouncing ball, is it? It's the market internals, right? How are the equities performing on the day at the open, right? Where is that chart? Where did it go? There it is, right? The other thing is how are equities performing going into the open? Is the S&P 500 issues getting bought? Are the Magnificent Seven issues selling off, etc.? Right? If we open up on the day, all the tech is selling off, all the S&P 500 is selling off, then your bouncing ball theory is more likely to break down, right? So it's not the pattern that gives the conviction, right? It's everything that controls the price action of the market that's going to dictate the movement. Oh gosh, that's a good stretch. Oh boy. I'm getting ready to judo chop this market today. It's been a long time since you've heard judo chop, I'm sure. Also, it's 9:15. It's probably that moment I should go get another coffee before this market gets so crazy and everybody makes so much money I have nothing else to say. I don't really know where I was going with that. So I'm going to go get a coffee. Probably not a whole lot's going to change. We're probably going to do the same old random garbage the market's been doing. And I will be right back. Cheers. Good morning, everyone. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. I know. Everyone just get too excited. Oh, all right. Remember too, like that. I'm gonna change. Oh, that's green. I guess it's a little different, but I guess it's kind of hard to tell because those are blue. But whatever. Yeah. So just remember too, like I said, it's a decision day. So with no breakdown, obviously we're gonna be looking to take the market back to like right there. That's gonna be like that will most likely be first objective market. Again, if we're not doing this, obviously market's going up and we're going there. Okay. And we're cool with it either way. And when I say we're cool with it either way, it's a sense that as market participants and as someone who sits and basically talks about probabilities of the market and reading what's probably going to happen in the market or what can happen in the market, these are just the probablities, right? The probabilities of the market, right? So, what I'm showing to you is it's not rocket science. It's just what's probably going to happen today. So, once you've seen the market so many times or trade so much for so many years, you realize there's only so much it can really do in a given moment in time. So to a degree, you eventually get the grasp of how something can kind of act and how something can kind of move. So it's not like, dark magic, sorcery, right? It's just what you can kind of expect to happen because the market can only do so much, right? So it's not like I'm super duper smart. It's just these are kind of the areas that markets tend to kind of trade around into on any given day, just based off the way the market's set up today. And many other days. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like if I had to make a simple children's book drawing of what you can expect to happen without getting too nuanced, I mean, that would be it. It's either market maintains below the levels we have on the screen, the two blue lines, and the market either doesn't go long or it just stays down and trades down, or it's going to have to go up. Right? And one of the price points we'd like to see it go up to is going to be the volume weighted average price of everyone selling short the stock market today. So if I anchor VWAPs to the absolute high of the market, that means everyone that's been trading short today, if we go to here, almost everyone's probably stopped out. Like there isn't too many people that started shorting the absolute high of the market today because we just know that. Like who does that? Most people don't, right? After it starts to go down, maybe they gain confidence, they go short here. And then after it goes down more, maybe they go here. And then maybe you have some kid that thinks the market's going to break down right as we hit the SMA calculation. So he goes short at the bottom, without knowing that you got to get to the live trading hours. Sometimes pre-market's funky. You can't trust the breakdowns, kind of everything we explained today. Then he gets squeezed out, right? And then, I get on stream and I'm like, actually, we still probably got to go down to here and then, whatever. And now we're just in the decision game, right? And the decision game is either going to be market has to break down or we're going to squeeze up, right? And when we squeeze up, one of the things that we like to do is we like to basically piss off everyone that's already been trading bearish in this case. So if you've been trading bearish pre-market, you bought short MES, you're short ES, you're short whatever, right? And the market doesn't go down, then you're probably going to close, right? And if the market's not going down, you're getting mad. And you'd be even more mad if it went and took all your profit, right? So we know that there isn't too many people in the profit that are short this morning unless they're basically below that level, right? So by going back to that level, we would almost certainly erase most of the profit anybody could possibly attain this morning on a short position, regardless of what they're trading, unless they nail the exact perfect top of the market, essentially. And then some, to a degree, you know what I mean? So when we talk about moving markets to specific prices, a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's like bad, it's just like, someone might be like, all right, like, if we can get up to the pre-market higher, at some point the market's going to go to the pre-market high, like, like that happens a lot of time, or, the pre-market low, obviously, but that's far harder to do than just to piss off a couple people that were trading short this morning. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard to get price to go here as it is to get it to go all the way there. So when you talk about a price target, and when I was talking earlier about, probabilities and things that are relatively attainable on the day, like that's a very attainable thing to do, even if it was a shitty day, right? Like even if the market didn't go up for a long period of time and it just popped and then it was like, right? Like that's attainable. Going for the pre-market high, maybe a little more challenging, right? So, that's when we talk about thinking in probabilities, right? That would be it. I'm not trying to probably take the market all the way up to here right now, because that would be quite a day, right? A lot of things would have to go right for that to happen. The only thing you need to go right for the market to go here is a couple people that have been shorting pre-market to realize that maybe they're wrong, and then just a couple short covers and pop, jobs done, right? So that's a long-winded explanation of how I think about some of these things when we put them on the screen, right? So, yeah, that's that. Oh boy. Oh gosh. Nikes. Oh snap. Hate when I leave the highlighter tool on, it's always a pain. Let's just double check this too. Have we hit the GP? We have not. So that could also be an area of interest for a breakdown, golden pocket of some previous trading days there. Let's check the 4 hour. 4 hour GPs are all done. There's a 3 hour down there. Nah, maybe not. Looks like a GP's hit. 30 minutes. I think there's a 30 minute down there, but it's all the way down to the low. There's a 30 minute GP there. So that 30 minute no GP cycled all the way to 423. So that is done. tech, if you will, looks to be starting slightly heavy there, but nonetheless, we're starting to bounce up just a little bit. Let me double check some other things. SPX. All right, so SPX is still right there, still holding support. I also have a gap down today. This is kind of an interesting setup. So there's that. So gap and go breakdowns could be 161. How's that line up with the daily? 161 here would be just above GP. All right, so we're pretty much coming into about, call it like T1 of that counter long push. Not quite, right? Sometimes it's perfect, better than others, but just in general, right, where the VWAPs are at. And these move a little bit, and that's because the volume pre-market isn't as high as the volume going into the open. So the volume at the open can affect pre-market VWAPs pricing, anyways. But so you can see that's kind of what we're talking about, right? If you don't just break down, obviously you're going to have to counter pop back to SMAs. And then if you get over SMAs, algorithms might then, in the real time, try to pressure that up a little more to there for the moment. But like I said, so far it's, I know, just hanging out. Let me just bring up another thing here. Let's check the 1 hour. 1 hour is negative. Oh, snap. I didn't even realize that yesterday. I'm dumb. Forgot to look at the 1 hour yesterday. Perfect resistance. Alrighty. Like I said, so far, I don't know, we're just trying to decide. I'm not really in any rush for the moment, just because, like I said, we're right at that SMA calculation. The VIX is elevated. It's still over its SMA calculation. It's just whether or not the market's actually willing to give up trend and go into a breakdown. And if not, like I said, we should pop right back up to VWAP level. But yeah, and then that's the thing is the VWAP levels on top are also can be temporary or just really top tick resistance potential. So that creates this environment where you don't have a lot of profit from here to here. And the market has to break down the blue to get a good short. So there's not a ton of room from here to here, which is creating this kind of little awkward spot, if you will, that we're just trying to decide in. Well, there's a little bit of a slide, so we'll see if the market continues here. If so, I mean, we'll see. I mean, if you go into a breakdown, we'll see. But obviously the market started breaking down a little bit there. We're below the 50 SMA, kind of rolling down some there. So yeah, you know, VIX is over that, what I said before, you know, we're kind of slightly lean bearish, but it's going to take a second. So we've officially broken down the SMA calculation, as you can see. Whether you want to call it head and shoulders, snapping, blah, blah, blah. Now, it doesn't necessarily set that breakdown in stone. And let's throw on some VWAPs, because remember, 1 minute volume weighted average price. I'm going to delete some of this stuff just to keep it a little bit cleaner. Let me just double check. I want to make sure I got this all cleaned up the way I like. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I don't really need the VWAPs anymore. I'll just take that off for now. Don't really want this 30-minute guy on. Cool. Is that the daily? Yeah, that one is. And then we'll just do this guy here. Again, we're on the negative side of trend, and let's just make sure everyone's clear with that, where that would be. So this is algo level right here. Below can trigger bearish sell off. Above back long. Okay. So, yeah, that's that. Oh, good morning, Walt. Hello, friend. Hello. Welcome back. All right, market bought up pretty quick. So what you're seeing right here in real time is just pretty much what do you, I mean, I don't need to go over every detail, but there's your 50 SMA. It's just a quick snap, boop, and then there's the algorithm back test, right? So that's where we said it would go down to. So it's kind of coming into a little bit of a support over under, you know, down into that 65,000, 65,407. We can maybe see a little bit of a Bitcoin bounce there. Hasn't quite hit the level, but ultimately this would be kind of a more of a lower risk area to watch for a bounce on Bitcoin, at least in the short term, you know. Also, I should probably just show you too what the trend looks like on the actual chart, because right now you're seeing horizontal lines, but if I were to, if I bring it up like this, right? So let's just make sure you're all aware of the phase we're in, right? So let's just go through real quick. That was our breakdown, okay? This was our oversold bounce back to trend. Yesterday we had to decide either stay below the SMA or break it up. We decided to break it up, go long. And then we decided, no, we don't want to stay long. So we pulled back to the SMA. We even bounced it, right? And now we're back at it, kind of deciding, are we going to break down and arguably start a new phase of breakdown, right? Are we going to arguably start a new phase of breakdown? That's what we're deciding right now. Or are we not, right? And arguably this, whatever we're seeing here is just a false move down and we turn back into longs, right? I know it sounds silly to a degree, but that's how the market pretty much works. And algorithms, well, to a degree, right? That's all the short term. This is the 30-minute, right? So we're looking at things on the 30-minute, which is basically how market makers move markets day in and day out around these levels, right? So, that's how one day your short is going well, and then the next day the market's blowing up. You're like, what? Yeah, it's because we literally just move markets from the short-term 30-minute trip going up and down, right? So, over the past couple of weeks, people that are, arguably like saying buying options and getting long, and then a week later the market's down, they're pissed off, right? And then someone who's getting puts, and then a day later it's up like that, they're pissed off, right? And that's because that's what we do. We literally get over the SMA, we try to ramp the market up. People are seeing the market go up, they start buying calls, and then 2 days later we break down the SMA and we run a selling program. We take away all their gains on their options, they get cooked, right? And then someone buys shorts, and then we do a back test to the 50 SMA. They're like, what? And then we take them out, right? So the market is all about basically breaking it out, breaking it down, and doing mean reversions. And so, for people who really do weekly options and short-term options, that's how we'll crush theta. That's how you'll get crushed on volatility. Is not truly, having a good grasp for how we're moving the trends of the market. And so on and so forth. So right here, right? So for example, you can kind of see how you could position yourself, right? If the market did go into a breakdown, what's going to be kind of the trades that work well? Either obviously shorting puts, selling premium over the 50, right? If the market legitimately broke down, kind of like it did up here, and that's always the game, is it, will it, etc., right? Selling calls, right, as the market breaks down, selling calls over the 50s is a good bet because there's a lot of premium there. It's not too far out of the money, and you're just at the start of a potential breakdown, right? And if you get the volatility move, they're all done for. They're cooked, right? You know what I'm saying? So, that's how you could arguably position yourself directionally with that. But like I said, we're in the decision day, and it's, like I said, I didn't ever expect it today to be easy. So far, it's not being easy, right? So far, the market is trading exactly as we would have expected. A little challenging. I leaned a little more bearish, and I've been pretty much lean bearish most of the morning, right? We're starting to come back up and through the 50 SMA calculation. So now we should not be short bias at all. We're kind of back on that potential boost back up long, right? So now that we've crossed back up and over, we should be leaned a little bit more on the long, if you will, for scalping and watching momentum up in the immediate until either this thing basically pulls back and breaks back down, right? So remember, some days can be really annoying. This is just how the algorithms move the markets, right? And traders as well. So let's go back to the SPY here. All right. So as you can see there, we already had it on the screen. Algo level below can trigger bearish sell-off, above back long. So if you look exactly where that's not positioned correctly. Yeah, so we go. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but you get the point right there. So right there, you can see how the market pops on that candle. It's not that that's making the market go into a perfect long. Again, that's just how the algorithm level is at, right? So you can literally see how we literally went above that, boop, and now right back down, right? So we're just basically playing a game today of deciding, digesting, deciding, are we going to break? Are we not? Are we going to break? Are we not? And when the market and when the algorithms are ready to control the market the way they want, we'll find out, right? That's a pretty solid rejection candle right there so far. Oh yeah, there might be some other data coming out. I don't even really know. I wasn't really paying attention. Probably should pay closer attention. What not? Yeah. Well. 9, 10. Some at 10. I don't know. What's the data at 10? Pending home sales. That's probably going to be pending home sales is going to be absolutely terrible. The housing market's straight cooked right now. But anyways, maybe it's data that does something. Maybe it's data that flips the market back to a long, flips the market back into a short. Excuse me. Excuse me. Got a call coming in. Super busy here in the chats. Super going crazies. Yep, I'm going to go with so far the market's lame, and we've been correct. It was going to be kind of lame. Leaning bearish hasn't really done as much. It's been somewhat correct, somewhat not correct, because the market's not really breaking down. We've just kind of seen short-term movement in the direction of down and up. So far, the market is performing like a decision day versus a conviction day. If we look at the market internals, so far the S&P issues have started kind of choppy to begin, then up. Some of the NASDAQ issues here are kind of grinding up. Magnificent 7 are relatively flat. So we're not seeing raging performance up or down for the moment. As a result, we are seeing the S&P 500 and arguably NASDAQ putting in what is more of a kind of grindier, choppier, or sloppy day. For the moment, could change. Let's double check some stuff here on this guy. So that's where the 50 is. So basically tech is negative. Tech is negative. SPY is negative. So everything's still negative. VIX is still positive. We're just not really seeing a whole lot of oomph. Even VVIX is up. So people are hedging downside risk right now in the market. So it's not like volatility is up and the VVIX is down. We have both of them up right now. Still, the market's not going down, which is kind of interesting, you know? Kind of leads me to believe we're not meant to break down for the moment. We're just still sitting digesting, folks. There is literally, other than scalping little things here and there, I don't see anything that, you know. We don't want to be, because that's what I mean. It's like, you just don't want to be too soon. Like a move will happen from this level. All right, whether we're transitioning bearish or we're going to hold a long, it's going to happen at some point. You just got to let the algorithms pretty much just fool everyone as much as they possibly can before actually making a move. What is this thing? INTS. What? Oh, it must have been reverse. Well, it had to be. That's hilarious. All right, I'm looking at. I'm looking. Netflix is still positive. Netflix is positive. Ooh, Microsoft coming back a little bit there. Meta's right at its 50 SMA. Meta might be a play. Again, it's still dependent on like the market. We need the market to kind of start picking up pressing some longs. The Nvidia, or sorry, not the Nvidia, the Netflix is still doing okay. Microsoft is starting to get positive. Again, I don't trust the market, so I don't know if I trust these breaks on some of these stocks right now. That's what I mean. Like, I kind of want to like to be long Microsoft, but I don't trust the market yet. And so just because Microsoft looks good, if the market underperforms, Microsoft's going to then start to underperform. So I'd be basically buying a bad setup. Same thing with Meta. You know, I'm kind of looking at Meta. Meta's at a level that is interesting, but if the market underperforms, then you would need Meta to outperform. And is that going to happen? It's less likely. So that's a no. And the VIX is positive, right? So fear is still elevated. So it's still kind of debatable if we should be long equity. You know, it's harder to be long equity when you do have elevated fear, but you know. I'm going to start running through some of these biggest gainers. Probably should have already been doing that, but you know. Yeah, I should have been paying much closer attention to this at the open, but that's okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, so again, just kind of scanning through some of the biggest gainers, seeing if I like something that I think is worthy. There's been a few. But the reality is, I mean, I should have really been paying closer attention at the open, but I was too focused on the market today. Because I was like, well, we might get a breakdown, and that would have been a nice thing to kind of look to trade into. But we're kind of, like I said, still holding support, doing the bounce. That's why Netflix is starting to work okay. Microsoft is into a long, so you could start something on Microsoft. You know, that's up to you. Meta is at, damn, I didn't even really realize it's $643. But yeah, Meta is right at its 50 SMA right now, so arguably kind of watching Meta for the moment, because if the market kind of keeps grinding up, you know, Meta is pretty close to its level. Well, it's not close, it's right on it. It's at the decision. So Meta is in the decision phase, right? It's right at the SMA. If it breaks and gets some love, you could be seeing you could be seeing something working out there. Netflix is working well. Again, still long Netflix from yesterday. Now Netflix is, I don't know, it's just moving up, I guess. That's really the only thing that's happening. Meta still rejecting its $643 price, so therefore Meta is not quite ready to go into a long move. Microsoft is working okay after clearing through its 50 SMA. We are starting to see some the market going up, right? So if you think about it, kind of Netflix is moving up a little bit. Amazon is still doing okay. Microsoft is starting to move up a little bit. Tesla's kind of moving up. AMD's moving up a little bit. As a result, we're seeing the markets bounce a little bit, et cetera, et cetera. Microsoft up to $403. Netflix up to about, I don't know, 77 or close to, something like that. Bitcoin bounced after we said basically coming into support. That's crazy. Someone must be paying attention. Just kidding. Alrighty. Yeah, cool. Now let's go just double check. Alright, so we're still positive. We're positive on the markets. Still don't think this market's great. I don't just because the market's positive for the moment. I mean, this thing still slightly sketch. All right, so VIX is back at its 30-minute 50 SMA. So pretty much the market might continue going up here, but we need the VIX to break down. So the VIX is just moved back to support. So basically the VIX is now in the decision phase. So now we're looking at the VIX because the VIX is in the decision phase. If the VIX is willing to break down, that will then give the market a catalyst to then move higher, right? Because the market's moved up, right? Now the VIX is at its decision level. If the VIX can break down here, then algorithms in real time would go, oh, great, VIX is going negative. Maybe we should put optimism in the market. So they'd start bidding the market up. Or they're more likely to start bidding the market higher if the VIX were to continue going down and or get below its algorithm price there at 2023, right? So that's something that we're focused on is 2023 on the VIX. And whether or not it's going to hold or not. Right now, it's support for the moment because it's above, right? So it's above, pulling back down too, so that makes it support, right? So if the SPY starts to top here a little bit, it's most likely driven by the fact we're supporting trend on the VIX, okay? So you really shouldn't be going long the top of the market here because we are coming into support on the VIX that has not yet broken down. Good morning, fellow peoples, fellow humans, everybody. Clap your hands. Clap, 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 clap. Everybody, clap your hands. How is QQQ doing here? QQQ, that's interesting. QQQ is back at the 50 SMA. Like I said, they're not making it easy today. So right now, the QQ is back testing 50 SMA, which is right there. It's that blue line. So you see right there, that blue line. Go to the QQQ 30-minute. Oh, maybe I'm a little off right about there. So QQQ is back testing 30-minute algorithm level here. So it's obviously, the basics would be support till it's not, right? So that's support till it's not, right? So So right now it's still, the algorithms are still holding positive on the market for the QQQ and the SPY. So markets are still positive. We did shake them down a little bit today, but right now markets are still positive trend. We're waiting for the VIX to give us a signal to basically take the markets up more long, maybe a little bit more aggressively, but we need to get a signal from the VIX. And so that would be the markets on the VIX breaking down $20 and like 33 cents or something like that. Or $20.23. Yeah. So that's that. Microsoft working well. Microsoft is now up. Let's see. Microsoft is now up about $2, maybe close to $3-ish from its algorithm transition level. So since transitioning over the 50 SMA, it's now up about like $2-ish, heading towards $3-ish from that algorithm level. Let's see, what about Netflix? Netflix is now 77. Yeah, Netflix has only really got us up about $1.50 a share since its transition point. Meta still isn't broken out. Amazon and Apple are still positive. We're following AMD. AMD, Meta, and Tesla are kind of the other couple that we might be following for transitions back to positive movement soon. Right now, the volatility index is coming down into 2023. So the market has effectively, so we've gone through the short-term breakout this morning on the VIX. We are now in phase 2, pulling back to the SMA. We are now at the decision game for VIX. Does the VIX break down? If so, market will boost up more here. Right? We want the catalyst from the VIX now to give us, or at least feed some degree of, there it goes. VIX just broke 2023. Let's see if they boost the market a little bit. Also, do remember, right? Just because the market goes below 2023 on the VIX doesn't guarantee it just breaks down into shelf dives, right? It still may need to back test, all right? But we have the first step done is we've gotten below 2023 now, right? So the market has two options from here on the VIX, and that's either to continue going down or go up. If go up, algorithms would most likely be willing to take it back to 2023-ish to back test the algorithm level. I know that's a lot to take in. Retail traders that are just starting will and do not know any of this. And this is not where they're typically directed first to learn things. Microsoft is doing well. Microsoft is officially up $3 per share since the algorithm break level we talked about. Netflix is up about $1 from our mention yesterday, which really isn't a whole lot. Amazon's up, I don't know, a couple dollars since we talked about it yesterday. So I'm still holding swing long Netflix. I got a little on Microsoft, waiting on Meta, waiting on AMD, don't have anything on Apple, closed Amazon. Probably should just keep scanning the biggest gainers. Of course, you wouldn't give me that, Philly. the volatility index not willing to break down 2023 effectively. Therefore, the market is not optimistic enough to keep riding up long for the moment. As you can see, the market's kind of stalled out a little bit. A lot of that's due to the volatility index holding trend as opposed to giving it up. Yeah, I kind of needed to jump on this biggest gainers list a little sooner today. And a lot of things are earnings too, so. What in the heck? Jeez. Interesting. Market SPY, again, just basically moving back down towards the 50 LCMI. How's Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin bouncing-ish. Okay. Again, trying to find something. Again, there's always something moving, like I said, but I'm just super duper duper picky, you could say. I mean, I don't want to say super duper, relatively, I guess. Yeah, just a lot of earnings pop in, stuff that's already well underway. CDIO, that thing's kind of continuing-ish. That's a ton. I guess so. Sorry, folks, just doing some research over here. Just a research I'm a-gooing. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Yeah, nothing that I was. Ooh, let me see what that is. Yeah. Yeah, nothing that looks too amazing. All right, and now we have the market back down to the 50 SMA. So basically, we're just having basically a scummy decision day. I can't say this really looks great, but yep. So maybe we'll get a breakdown at some point, but it ain't yet. Again, this is literally just the market coming back down to the 50 SMA once again. And now the market's going to have to decide bounce or maybe break down, right? But as we said, the market a lot of times isn't always just straightforward. But yeah, you get the point. So we're just basically sitting, chilling with the market doing this. Yay. That being said, we did mention it was probably going to be a dumb day. That's not. Wait a second. Yeah, we today. Okay. I'm currently looking at some of the stocks that are going to have some earnings tonight. I'm seeing if there's anything that might be special. Man, this market just chilling. Like I said, not a whole lot to do for the moment. If the volatility index ends up breaking down, then we'll take the market, kind of start pushing it back up long. VIX hasn't broken down yet. Market's just kind of sitting over its support level, as we mentioned, and voila, kind of just like that, right? Market's going to have to decide. Whoa, hello. Snikes. Yeah, like I said, market will have to decide if it wants to. Well, yeah, bounce at support or break down, right? So we're still holding positive over the 50. So market is still positive. Microsoft is still positive. Netflix still positive. Nvidia is positive. Amazon's positive. AMD we're waiting on. Tesla we're waiting on, et cetera, et cetera. And Meta is still at the decision level, has not fully broken up, could basically be trying right now, don't really know for sure, etc. Market does whatever it wants, but it is at the decision level, so kind of looking at it, following. the 5-minute MACD isn't super strong on Meta, so it's not like it appears there's a ton of momentum leading into the decision level. So it doesn't really appear the momentum's fantastic as far as MACD would say. So maybe it's a no-go for the moment. Market hasn't been the greatest today, so it's not like we're having a screaming bullish market to help piggyback Meta through its breakout level. Yeah, so I'm still scanning, still searching, having fun. Via. Oh wait, what am I doing? Wrong chart. Like something don't look right. Oh, the other thing too I want to mention, for the moment, the volatility market hasn't broken down, and VVIX hasn't broken down. So even if the VIX breaks down, like we've discussed a little bit, it can do so, but VVIX wouldn't be confirming the move either. So it's kind of one of those situations where, like, even if the VIX broke down, there would still possibly be people hedging for downside risk. Like, the market isn't fully confirming there. A lot of times you like to see the VIX and the VVIX both being taken down at the same time, as opposed to not. I don't really make a stock selection list at night. Basically what I'll do is some nights I'll run through the after hours gainers just to see what has been moving. Maybe there's some trade to catch here or there. Then in the morning, I'm really just going through the biggest gainers list, seeing which ones have activated uptrends, which if they're on the biggest gainers list, usually all of them have. And if they're just starting, or if they have the opportunity to pull back to support, etc. So it's pretty much just in the morning, biggest gainers, scan them, keep going through them. If they're triggering levels that are super low risk, then I can enter them. If not, no. Or like right now, I just keep up a list of all the Magnificent 7 stocks. So I just know, like right now, Meta is at its decision level, so it could arguably be starting, an uptrend. But right now the market sucks, so I'm like a little hesitant to going long Meta only because the market hasn't truly been performing that great, though it is positive. So it's like the market is positive, it's just been so lackluster. You know? So yeah, I pretty much just kind of, do an active scan each day. Like right now, I'm going through the earnings players just to see like which ones might be ramping up before earnings. I've kind of been noticing some of a similarity between the system that I use and volume, and so I'm going to try and see if I can start getting better at predicting some of these, forecasting, if you will, some of these earnings moves. What in the world? All right, market pretty much not doing a whole lot, folks. Oh no, Bitcoin still going down. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention too. We should be looking at the week. There might not even be enough data there for that. Actually, let's see. Yeah, basically, our next target down for Bitcoin is going to be to 62,000 next. That would be the weekly volume weighted average price. So if we think it's just like scaling it differently, so if we think about like this week here, that big week, along with pretty much everything in between there. So everyone buying from this big candle, and that candle as relates to the weekly would all be stopped out if we take them down to $62,092. So arguably not a bad thing to do for the market if it wants to screw people over, is essentially go below. And so look at how it's kind of all set up, you know. So first we would like, you know, be here on the daily. So you see how the daily's here on Bitcoin? Oh, 1 second, sorry. Real quick. Cool. All right, so you see how the daily chart is right there. So bounce coming down into, if that gives up, then it goes boop, right there. And then that will be the weekly VWAP, at which point we'll probably see a long bias trade, you know, in the short term. Kind of like you just saw, you know, like for example, we'll go back to, you know, like this 5-minute chart. Kind of like that, you know, it didn't touch perfectly, but, you know, the concept being is when the market comes into your VWAP level for the first time, that's usually where like a sell move is completing, and then an opposite so it's just being met with opposition near that area. So ultimately, looking at Bitcoin here, if we end up successfully taking out the daily VWAP trend, whether that be now and it just straight shelves, because if it breaks like this, it's going to be a shelf dive, right? If we don't break down, we will then hold support and very well try to backtrack to these volume weighted average prices to create a new lower high and then try it again. So there's really only so much this market can do. It can either break down or then reset a higher low, probably where we're expecting. It's really, those are the two options: shelf dive down, weekly VWAP, or basically counter retest to the top down volume weighted average prices to reset the previous sell leg. Again, still really nothing to do here, folks. Today, after our live stream, will be our 200th video. Yay. Yippee. All right, is the market probably going to throw everyone for the old scammeroo? Probably not going to break down. efficiently, that is. Let's see. The SPY is currently below its 5 minutes. So, the market definitely, I would say, leaned a little more bearish for the moment. I mean, 5 minutes down, all right, 15 minute is, 15 minutes currently on the sell side, or, downside, if you will. So 5 minute, 10 minute, and now we're currently under the 1 minute. So we're pretty much under all short term averages besides that 30 minute. So, one may conclude we're targeting down to the 30 minute now. And then if that breaks down, sure. We're below the 1 hour. We're below the 2 hour.